Chapter 7. September 5th. I'd accepted my loneliness, but I haven't stopped to look at the future. What does my future look like? The goal has been to stay hidden from the stories of hunters in the dark and punishments for my mistake. But even if I could stay hidden forever, I don't want to. One day, I will be ready to step into the light and take the consequences for my actions. I will fight off the shadows that haunt me in my dreams. I'm almost ready, but not quite. I've avoided the football player that ran into me the first day, but sometimes I catch a glimpse of him across the quad or out on the field for practice. I've seen him scanning the crowd, searching the faces of his classmates, and I know he's looking for me. The thought of him remembering me, of wanting to see me again, brought something to life in me that I thought had died a long time ago. There's a sensation in my belly that makes me feel hungry. It makes me want to be seen again. But that line of thinking is dangerous. If I let one wall down, who knows how much of me I will expose. I might even forget why I started hiding in the first place. Like the angels forgot their main purpose and were more concerned about their own future than the humans they were meant to protect. Or maybe, like me, they really believed that what they were doing was the only way to survive for everyone. I haven't worked up the courage to use my powers, to heal Nolan, Pat's husband, when they brought him home on a machine. I can heal. I used to practice on birds, and our cat that liked to bother raccoons. I know I can heal. But Nolan's injury isn't in his body, it's a brain injury, and I'm afraid to make another mistake, ruin another person's mind. All I did was give Pat a hug and tell her she can do this. She's strong enough. I feel like an imposter. Treadon Nelson. Treadon walked through the front door and was met with the smell of barbecue chicken, a little on the burnt side. There was a plate sitting on the counter. Abigail was by the sink, cutting Gabe's hair. He was back. He always came back like an unwanted zit the day before prom. Gabe sat stiff under the hair cape, his head down, tilted slightly toward Treadon, but not enough to make eye contact. Abigail ran the cutter close to Gabe's ears, doing a final detail check. "How is school?" Abigail asked. Treadon sat down on the stool in front of the chicken. He picked up a leg and pulled off a strip of meat. "Fine," he said through the piece of meat, sending the word forward like the white pawn in the first move of chess. Treadon chewed on the meat while his mom chewed on his response. He'd given her nothing, and she was deciding if it was worth fighting for more. Treadon studied the chicken in front of him. He could tell her more. He could also find out more than she was saying, if he tried to read her. The girl he saw seemed to think he could do more. Treadon wasn't sure he wanted to go back to that kid who got beat up after school when he tried to read people. He didn't want his own mom to think he wasn't a normal teenage kid, even if it meant stupid answers, like, "Fine." Abigail turned off the razor and brushed a few hairs off the plastic cape with a swish. Gabe stood up before Abigail could take off the cape. He took a few steps, but then stopped at the edge of the hallway. "How are your grades?" Even without trying to read Gabe, Treadon could hear the rusty gears in Gabe's brain turning, trying to remember how to have a normal conversation. He should buy the guy a book called How to Sound Like a Dad for Dummies. It's only the second week of school. Not failing anything yet. Gabe gave a brief nod. Formal. His shoulder was angled away from Treadon. Treadon couldn't help thinking he looked like a man on the edge of escape, wondering if he should continue to fight to think of things a father would say, or simply find solace in his office. "You're capable of more than just not failing." Gabe pulled the hair cape off him, like he'd just realized it was still around his neck. "How would you know?" Treadon couldn't help biting back. "You don't know anything about me." He kept his eyes on his chicken, because even when he tried not to read Gabe, there was this constant message of disappointment. Gabe expected more from him, which was a joke coming from the guy who was only around some of the time and couldn't hold down a job. "Treadon." Abigail kept her voice even, but when Treadon looked up, she saw Abigail give Gabe a look. "Sorry," Gabe said. "I know you work hard. At football." He said the last two words like they were a piece of toilet paper caught on the back of his shoe. Abigail picked up the empty plate of chicken. "Speaking of football, did Jaren tell you any more about that new car of his?" Master of subject change. Treadon appreciated it this time. He jumped on the lifeline like an acrobat grabs a trapeze and let it swing him away from Gabe's critical energy. Fancy, right? It has a high-tech security system. What kind of security system? Gabe had unfortunately jumped on the same trapeze. Treadon wished he would take his escape down the hallway and leave them in peace. Without the hair cape, Gabe had only a white t-shirt and his leather bike pants. The guy was a walking steroid ad. His arms were thick, each muscle defined. He held his shoulders military straight and had a jaw that looked like it could take on a brick and win. Treadon resisted the urge to sit up straighter when he turned to answer Gabe's question. It's some kind of electronic paneling or something. I don't know how it works, but it shocks you if you get too close. Did Jaren say what it was designed to shock? Gabe rolled up the hair cape and twisted it in his hands. Treadon imagined Gabe wringing the life out of an innocent animal the way he wrung the joy out of his mom. The image probably wasn't fair, but the thought was enough to make Treadon stand and head to his room. Gabe stayed, blocking the hallway. Not exactly, Treadon said as he waited for Gabe to move out of the way so he could slip down the hall. Said something about metal and freshman initiation. Gabe didn't look entertained in the slightest. That's all I know, Treadon said. I have some homework to do, to keep from failing. Can I go? Gabe hesitated a second longer, then stepped to the side. Treadon pushed past. He went into his room and shut the door with more force than necessary. He wanted them to hear it slam. He didn't want them to hear as he carefully turned the handle and pulled the door open a crack. He pressed his ear to the opening, getting catches of their soft conversation. He's getting older, Abigail. You should give him the chance to make his own decisions. He deserves it. There's no need to involve him. There are 2 reasons. 1, he has more potential than he's living up to. He could do more. And let you drag him into this the way you dragged me? Gabe was quiet for a moment. Is that how you feel? No, I chose this. You know I did. But not for him. I didn't choose this for him. I want him to be able to have a normal life. What's the second reason? Gabe's voice was even quieter now. Treadon imagined them standing close, their faces almost touching. If he knew, you wouldn't have such a burden to carry alone. He could be there for you when I can't. Something clattered to the floor. Abigail must have pulled back and knocked something from the counter. We have each other, she whispered. You know I can't be there for you. Not the way you need. How long can you continue alone? Gabe saw the struggle in Abigail as well, but he didn't sound sympathetic. Treadon opened the door another fraction of an inch. He could step out, tell his mom that he didn't want her to be alone anymore, tell her that he could be more than he was. Treadon is on track to get a scholarship, money that he needs for his future. I won't let him give that up. Treadon let the door close again, a sinking feeling in him. If he stepped out there, he was afraid there was a chance he'd end up like Gabe, unable to give his mom the life she deserved. But if he stayed with football, he could change things for her. He opened his computer to start on an English paper, but he had to close his eyes for a moment. He was good at football. He had a real chance to make a difference. So why did he feel like Gabe was right?